Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Dave's Math channel. I'm your host, David Tare, and this is my continuing feature on the Math Lovers book. Been talking about loops, which is part of sequential programming, section 8.4 of the Math Lovers book, volume 1. And today I'm going to talk about nested loops. So, anyway, let's begin. So what is a nested loop? Well, nested loops are just loops within loop. And a basic example with one level of nesting looks as follows. So, we have this would be nested for loops. Usually it is for loops we nest. So we've got, remember, a for loop has an index that ranges from I min to I max. So our outer for loop looks like for I equals I min, I less than or equal I max, I plus plus. That just means the index I is ranging from I min to I max and increases by 1 each iteration. But then within that for loop, you can have another. So we can you have another index. It has to always be a different index. So we can call that one J. And now we're going from J min to J max. Same idea. So now the code inside this inner for loop is going to depend on both I and J. It depends on two different variables. And this will allow us to do a lot more things than we could without nesting. So it's a very useful technique. Anyway, I'm gonna show you one example. This is gonna be a pretty short video because I only have one example to present here. But this is a pretty basic example. Suppose we wanted to, the computer to print out a multiplication table, a 10 by 10 multiplication table. Just all the integers from I equals, from 1 to 10. Well, how would you do this? Well, this was a perfect application for nested for loops. So we do the same thing we did last time. We just letting I min be 1, I max be 10. So our outer loop looks like for I equals 1, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. That's the loop on I. And then we have an inner loop on J for J equals 1, J less than or equal to 10, J plus plus. So I and J are the numbers we're multiplying here. And now all we want to do is when we print our multiplication table, we're just going to print their product, I times J. So, it's going to, and then this backslash T, this is in C. My pseudocode is very close to C, the way I've written it. So in C, and I think in some other languages too, backslash T stands for tab character. That just means leave a space, usually about 8 characters, a long space between the symbols it prints out. So and they'll be aligned when you do this. So if let's just kind of go through, and then there's also another print statement after it exits the inner for loop. It says print backslash n. That just means print a new line because we want every row of the multiplication table to be on a different line. So we should probably do a walkthrough of this code just to see what this is going to do. When we first run the code, I is going to be 1, and then we go in the inner for loop, J is 1. So now I and J are both 1, and now it's going to print the product 1 times 1. That's just 1. And then it exits the inner for loop, it goes back again, because J isn't less than, now it's still less than or equal to 10, now J is 2, and now it's going to print 1 times 2, it's going to print 2, right next to 1. There was a tab, so it's going to be 1 tab 2, and then I think you can kind of see what it's going to do after that. The next time it goes back again through the inner for loop, now J is 3, and it's going to print 1 times 3, 3. So finally, by the time it's up to the last iteration in the inner for loop, J is going to be 10. So now it's going to print 10, but already printed all the numbers 1 through 9. So that's going to complete the first row of the multiplication table. It just has the numbers 1 through 10 in order. And now it's done with the inner for loop. So there's no, and now it prints a new line. That's the only other thing in the outer for loop. So once it's done with the first row, it prints a new line. It means start the next row. So now it's going to come out of that was the first iteration of the outer for loop. And now the next iteration, I is now 2. So now J again goes from 1 to 10. J starts at 1. So now I is 2 and j is 1. The first thing that's going to print is 2 times 1, which is 2. That's the beginning of the second row of the multiplication table. And I think you can see what's going to happen after that. The second time around, j is 2, I is still 2, because we're still in the outer for loop. So now we're going to print 2 times 2, which is 4. I think you can see what's going to happen. It's going to print 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, just the even numbers up to 20. And similarly, it's going to keep running the outer for loop. Each time it runs the outer for loop, it prints another row of the multiplication table. But the row it prints always starts with whatever I was, and then it's just the multiples of I after that. So the third row is going to be 3, 6, 9, 12, so on. And finally, it's going to keep doing this 10 times. The last row is going to be the multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30, up to 100. So when you're done, you're going to have a complete multiplication table. Pretty neat, I think. So anyway, that's just one thing you can do with in nested for loops. Another thing, before I finish, I might as well mention, I learned programming a long time ago, and I used to have a book I really liked by these two authors, Deedle and Deedle. I think they were brothers, and I actually have a few of their books. But they had really good exercises in their books, and one of their exercises, when they were teaching nested for loops, they asked the exercise they gave was to print out the lyrics to the 12 Days of Christmas. And this is another example of where a for loops comes in handy, because I think you know that each of the gifts on each of the 12 days of Christmas is repeated each day. I mean a new one every new day, but I guess the poor true love ended up getting 12 partridges and 11 turtle doves. She gets probably a lot more gifts than she wanted, because every day she's getting the old gifts again. But you can write a nested for loop to print out all the lyrics to that song, which I've done, and it's a pretty cool application, I think. So anyway, just thought I'd mention that. So that concludes my video for today on nested loops. Thank you for watching. Long live math, and I'll see you guys next time.